What is the role of the New Testament prophet? First of all, there are some Christians who don't even think that prophets exist today, but prophets exist in the church. In 1 Corinthians, Paul says God has set in the church apostles, prophets, teachers. Well, surely you believe in teachers. Well, prophets are also included. And Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11, when Jesus ascended, he gave gifts to men, including apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors. Well, surely you believe in evangelists, you believe in pastors. Well, then, of course, you should accept prophets as well. However, with that being said, the status of the New Testament prophet is not as important as it was under the Old Testament. And the reason is simple. Under the New Testament, God has poured out his Spirit on all flesh. In other words, every believer can have access to the Holy Spirit, which was different than the Old Testament. You see, under the Old Testament, if you wanted to get guidance from God, you had to go to a prophet for guidance, because only the prophet had the Spirit who could be led by the Spirit. A good example is when Saul went to Samuel to try to find his lost donkey. So today, though, since believers can have the Holy Spirit inside of them, we are led by the Spirit, not by prophets. See, Romans chapter 8, verse 14. Those who are sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. So something beautiful has happened in the new covenant, is all God's people now have the Spirit, and therefore all of God's people can be led by the Spirit. So we don't need prophets to be our daily guide anymore. Now, prophets are still important, but under the New Testament, we're to judge prophetic words. In 1 Corinthians 14, verse 29, it says 2 or 3 prophets should speak, and the other should weigh carefully what is said. Under the Old Testament, how could someone judge what a prophet said when only the prophet had the Spirit? But under the new covenant, we Christians have the Spirit. Therefore, we can judge and weigh carefully what prophet said. And then we're also told in 1 Corinthians 14:31, listen to this, for you can all prophesy. So now under the new and better covenant, everyone can have the gift of prophecy, though that doesn't make them a prophet, but that does tell a prophet that you're not the only one that can have this gift. So yes, prophets exist today. They're needed. They're important, like a pastor's important, but they do not have the same prestige as they did under the old covenant. And I would just say to you as a Christian, do not be led by prophets. Instead, be led by the Holy Spirit.